The Scottish Fiscal Commission conducts rigorous and independent analysis of tax and the economy in Scotland. Its most recent report outlines that SNP tax rises are costing Scottish workers £1.7 billion each year. So we should have an extra £1.7 billion to spend, but we don't, because the SFC identifies what it calls an economic performance gap with the rest of the UK. This actually reduces the amount available to spend. Does John Swinney know the size of the economic performance gap between SNP-run Scotland and the rest of the UK?
First Minister.
I think the important point to consider here is that the extra revenue that is raised as a consequence of the tax decisions that we have taken in Scotland enable us to invest in public services and in other interventions that support the government's policy agenda. And those changes and differences are, of course, well acknowledged and well understood within Scotland. As one example, we have a much more significant provision of early learning and childcare here in Scotland, which meets the needs of families. And in addition to that, the Scottish Child Payment helps to keep children out of poverty. And of course, in Scotland, we have a falling child poverty rate rather than in the rest of the United Kingdom, where child poverty rates are rising. So there are differences in policy outcomes that come from the decisions the government has made to ask people in higher incomes to pay slightly more in taxation.
Russell Findlay.
More smoke and mirrors from John Swinney, and he doesn't seem to know the figure, so let me help him. SNP tax rises in hard-working Scots should result in £1.7 billion more to spend. But because the SNP-run economy lags behind the rest of the UK, the Scottish Fiscal Commission says they only have £600 million more to spend. So under the SNP, there's a £1.1 billion economic performance gap. And that's just this year. Last year, it was another billion. Over the last 10 years, according to the SFC, the economic performance gap with the rest of the UK adds up to £5.4 billion. Does John Swinney now realise that anti-business SNP policies are costing Scotland a fortune?
First Minister.
I think what's clear from the data is that the improvements in GDP per capita in Scotland under this government, the Scottish Government, since we came to office, have been superior to those in the rest of the United Kingdom. That's what the data tells us, that the Scottish economy, in terms of GDP per capita, has grown at a faster rate in Scotland than in the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, of course, we take a number of steps as a government to invest in the economy. We are supporting the investment in key sectors of the economy, such as renewable energy. We are actively involved in investing in the skills system to support the development of the economy. And, of course, we assist companies by having a competitive business rates regime in Scotland, which reduces the burden of business rates on companies in Scotland, enabling them to invest in their business operations. That's what Scotland gets from the business-friendly SNP government.
Russell Findlay. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll just try and stop laughing for a minute. John Swinney doesn't even seem to accept the economic performance gap exists. It's peak SNP denial. The SFC are saying it. It's in here. The First Minister should try and read it. The SNP have failed to keep up with the rest of the UK. They've made it even worse by wasting billions of pounds of taxpayers' money on a national care service that doesn't treat patients, the endless CalMac ferry scandal, a £1 billion prison with bird and bat boxes, and an annual benefits bill that will soon top £9 billion. The SNP are costing Scotland £1 billion a year in lost growth and countless billions through their sheer incompetence. Isn't this exactly why John Swinney can't bring down bills or improve public services? He's thrown all the money away.
First Minister.
just so that I can be clear to Mr Findlay, under the SNP government since 2007, GDP per person in Scotland has grown by 10.3% compared to 6.1% in the United Kingdom. So that demonstrates that we've had superior economic performance to the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, Russell Findlay, of course, highlights the fact that there are choices to be made about public expenditure, and when he talks about the annual benefits bill, I think he has to be explicit about what he's talking about. What benefits is he going to cut? Because what we believe is important is that we support children to be helped out of poverty. That's part of... Is that what Russell Findlay wants to stop? Does Russell Findlay... I think that's what we're now talking about. Russell Findlay wants to end the Scottish child payment and consign more children to poverty.
Let's hear one another.
Well, I'm simply pointing out, Presiding Officer, that there are implications of Mr Findlay saying things like the annual benefits bill is too high. He has to set out where the cuts are going to come from, and the cuts under Mr Findlay will fall on the children of Scotland. I want to lift children out of poverty. Mr Findlay wants to consign children to poverty.
Russell Findlay.
The Scottish Conservative Party wants to lift children and families out of poverty, not keep them trapped on benefits. The SNP waste money on an industrial scale, but unbelievably, Labour looked at the SNP's economic record and then decided to copy them. They've already raised national insurance, but there's more pain to come. The spending review signals a return to tax and spend. Rachel Reeves is shafting business, workers, farmers and the oil and gas industry. But there's at least enough money now for John Swinney to give Scots a tax break. So will he commit to bringing down the burden on Scottish workers and families?
First Minister.
I suppose there's one minor element of that question that I can find some common ground with, which is the damage that's been done to the economy by the decision to increase employers' national insurance contributions. Because we saw from the month of April in the GDP statistics this morning that there has been a contraction of GDP in the United Kingdom, down by 0.3%. Now, I think that could reasonably have been predicted from the increase in employers' national insurance contributions. Indeed, I warned about that. Because if we're going to have an agenda that's focused on growth, I do not understand why the UK Labour government took a decision to support a growth-reducing measure such as employers' national insurance contributions that the evidence now tells us is suppressing growth within the United Kingdom. So that's the context that we're now operating in. What I will say to Mr Findlay is this government will do what it always does. We'll focus on the needs of the people of Scotland. We'll focus on lifting children out of poverty. We'll focus on improving our public services. We'll focus on the journey to net zero, and we'll focus on improving the economic performance of Scotland, just like we've done in the past.